for today's movie review, I'll be reviewing the 2023 sci-fi action movie, The Creator, the overall fourth movie to be directed by Gareth Edwards, who previously directed the 2010 Creature Feature Monsters, the 2014 Godzilla movie, along with the 2016 Star Wars spin-off Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. And I figured with his latest movie, Jurassic World Rebirth, hitting theaters, I figured, why not do a review of this movie, since I've already reviewed all of his other movies, even though I do have the intention of re-reviewing his 2014 Godzilla movie as a part of my Godzilla extravaganza. Not only that, but I do think Gareth Edwards is a very underappreciated movie director in today's industry that I do wish to continue supporting. Now, as far as production details for this movie are concerned, after finishing Rogue One, A Star Wars Story back in 2016, Gareth Edwards decided to take a break by going on a 4-day road trip to his girlfriend's house in the state of Iowa, where he wasn't really expecting to think of any ideas for movies. And while at his girlfriend's house, he saw a factory with a Japanese-looking logo on it, situated among the tall grass and farmlands, and wondered, what are they doing here? Oh, maybe it's robots or something cool. And from there, he took a lot of ideas from this little encounter, which is where he would eventually get the idea for this movie. As far as influences for the movie are concerned, Gareth Edwards has stated that movies ranging from Apocalypse Now, Blade Runner, Akira, Rain Man, The Hit, E.T., Extraterrestrial, Paper Moon, along with Baraka, served as heavy inspirations for this movie. Gareth Edwards also stated that he wanted to take a more traditional approach when directing the movie after visiting a virtual reality studio that had this poster hang on the wall that explained the process of filmmaking and was really confused as to why such a poster was on the wall, and was shocked to find out that the poster itself was over 100 years old. And sometime later, after talking to the studio, this led him to film the movie without using any green screen, and decided to go to various different locations ranging from Vietnam, Cambodia, Japan, Indonesia, Thailand, and Nepal to shoot on location while utilizing some guerrilla-styled filming techniques, and employed industrial light and magic to add the sci-fi elements later. And sometime later, The Creator would hit theaters, receiving generally positive reception from critics, which also resulted in the movie getting 2 nominations at the Academy Awards for both special effects and best sound design, only to lose to Godzilla Minus One and The Zone of Interest. Which begs the question, was The Creator really that good? As for the plot of the movie, during an ongoing war between mankind and artificial intelligence, a former Special Forces agent named Joshua, who is grieving after the disappearance of his wife during a mission, is recruited to destroy a mysterious weapon developed by an individual referred to as the Creator, who was responsible for developing advanced artificial intelligence. While on said mission, Joshua soon stumbles upon the mysterious weapon, which happens to take on the form of a bionic little girl. While interacting with the little girl, Joshua discovers that there's more than meets the eye with this bionic girl, and can't decide whether or not she should be saved or destroyed. Now, in terms of what I liked about the movie, honestly, I know for a fact that I am not the first person to say this, but the special effects this movie has are really amazing. I can see why the movie was nominated for Best Visual Effects during the, at the time, 96th Academy Awards. Because when you really do look at this movie, the quality of the special effects in this movie look as if it were on par with a movie that had a $2 million budget. But in reality, The Creator had a budget roughly around $80 million. And when you compare the special effects of this movie to another 2023 movie such as Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, a movie that had a budget between $330 to $380 million, yet the movie looked as if it had a $80 to $90 million budget that had special effects that look okay at best in some instances. And I think the reason why the special effects in this movie look so good does come down to Gareth Edwards' direction. Because if you ever knew anything about Gareth Edwards, before he started directing movies, he mainly worked as a special effects person, working on a TV show such as Attila the Hun, where he knew how to produce good CG effects in that show. On a small budget, mind you. But as far as his movies are concerned, even though he was given $80 million, he knew how to utilize $80 million worth of budget because he decided to work with the budget and not against it. For example, within the confines of the movie, there's a shot where you have one of the android characters holding a basket filled with rice and you see their hands touching and going through the rice. And before that shot was even filmed, he asked the studio, how much money would it take to have a person dressed in a costume in a basket made for that scene in front of a green screen? And it was reported that supposedly it would cost 10 or 12 grand to film or some absurd number. And he straight up said, I think it would be cheaper to take all the film crew and just fly over to Vietnam and just shoot on location, which is exactly what they did. So that one shot where you literally have an android character holding a basket picking up rice was shot on location. And the only special effects you see is just a mechanical hand. Again, like I said a few seconds ago, it really does show that Gareth Edwards knows how to use a budget for special effects. Another aspect of the movie I liked is something that Gareth Edwards did with the 2014 Godzilla along with Rogue One is adding a sense of scale to everything. Seriously, I don't know how he does it, but Gareth Edwards really does know how to add a sense of scale in terms of showing the size relationship between objects and people. No matter if it's a wide shot of a android character looking up at the sky, seeing Nomad hovering above them, or a wide shot that occurs very early in the movie with a group of soldiers coming out of the water onto the beach, but in the background you have the lasers from Nomad lighting up behind them. Really give it a sense of scale in terms of how big Nomad is compared to the people within the context of that one shot. Another aspect of the movie I liked is the way the movie begins, because we first see news footage from what looks like an alternate 1950s, and the way the footage plays out in terms of both the musical score, the film grain, even the voiceover, it looks and sounds as if it was a newsreel from the 1950s, showing this technology that came from a retro futuristic ray gun gothic sort of old school sci-fi, and even showing what looks like actual practical effects for these retro-looking robots as it slowly progresses into the more modern-looking robots. Another aspect of the movie I liked are a lot of the designs for several of the technology used throughout the movie, no matter if it's the overall design to Nomad itself, to even the design of some of the various AI cyborgs that we see throughout the movie, with some looking very inhuman, while others have a more human-like quality to them. Another aspect of the movie I liked is the direction the movie goes with the man versus machine conflict. Because in most man versus machine narratives of this caliber, you usually have mankind create artificial intelligence, which results in the artificial intelligence rising up to eliminate all of mankind, as seen in movies ranging from The Terminator, Avengers Age of Ultron, and so on and so forth, where the AI is depicted as being very evil and wants nothing more than to wipe out all of mankind for one reason or another. But for this movie, yes, we still have a man versus machine conflict. And while a lot of the AI cyborgs were created by humans, the script is flipped, because a lot of the AI cyborgs only fight the humans to protect themselves and those around them. If anything, a lot of the AI cyborgs just want to coexist and live peacefully among the humans. Another aspect of the movie I liked is how original the movie is, because the past two movies Gareth Edwards has directed were based on pre-existing IP, such as Godzilla and Star Star Wars. And for this movie, he went in a very different direction where he decided to take a page out of James Cameron's playbook of Avatar by taking a lot of familiar elements we've seen before and mixes them together to form something new. And although someone could watch this movie and say that clearly came from Blade Runner, or that clearly came from Apocalypse Now, or this clearly came from E.T., Gareth Edwards manages to mix them together in a way that's both familiar and new at the same time. And on top of that, this movie wears its influences on its sleeve. Another aspect of the movie I liked is the relationship between Joshua and Alfie that we see throughout the movie, because to me, their relationship is what carried the movie narratively speaking, and I do think that the actors playing both Joshua and Alfie play off each other very well. You do really get a sense of them trying to figure out each other and figure out ways to get from one place to another, and give props to the child actress playing Alfie. She does a fantastic job of playing the character. Another aspect of the movie I want to talk about is the social commentary, because at the time of the movie's release, a lot of filmgoers were very disappointed by the social commentary because it's not what they were expecting. Because going into the movie, they were expecting the movie to explore themes revolving around artificial intelligence, and were very disappointed by the fact that the movie didn't dive deeper into that aspect of the movie. And I think the real problem here is, I think people misunderstood what the movie was trying to say, because the movie wasn't trying to showcase the exploration of artificial intelligence in today's day and age. I think the movie was trying to explore how America has the ability to be more imperialistic in some capacity by having a lot of the human characters in this movie hunt down and destroy a lot of the AI cyborgs, because they viewed them as a threat, kind of like what the American government did during the Vietnam War, where they viewed the Vietnamese as a threat and tried to eliminate them. And I think it was a smart move on the filmmaker's part by making the AI cyborgs not represent one particular group of minorities, in that sense where they make them basic enough that the cyborgs in question could represent any group of minorities. Because I feel like the moment they give characteristics related to one group of people, I feel like the movie would be a little more dated. And I think by having them be depicted as being very basic in human nature will make the movie more timeless as it ages. An aspect of the movie I have mixed feelings about is the way the human and AI cyborgs are depicted in this movie. And I'm not sure if this was done on purpose or by accident, but something that I've noticed is that all of the AI cyborg characters, no matter if it's some of the major characters or even minor characters that show up throughout the movie, seem to behave and act more human than the actual humans, which I find to be really odd. Because ideally, you should have your human characters behave and act more human, and have the AI cyborgs behave and act more like AI cyborgs. Yet, here's a movie where the script is flipped, and while I definitely do enjoy a lot of the AI cyborg characters, I do think the human aspect of this movie suffers because they didn't make the humans behave and act like humans. Now, in terms of what I disliked about the movie, honestly, the first problem I have is a nitpick, that being the title cards. With the exception of the very first title card, that being the creator, all the other title cards I thought were very unnecessary. Sure, I get why they're there when they do show up, leading into those segments, with the first one being the child, which mainly focuses on Joshua's interaction with Alfie. Then you got the next one, the friend, which mainly focuses on Joshua and Alfie's interaction with Joshua's friend, and the final segment being the mother. Again, I get why they're there. It's just one of those things where I think you could just remove those three title cards, and I don't think the movie would have changed at all. Now for the first problem that I have with the movie is something that this movie has in common with Rogue One, that being the pacing to the first act of the movie. Because much like Rogue One, the pacing to the first act of The Creator, to me, felt a bit slow going at points. It just felt like the movie was meandering from one scene to the next. Honestly, I didn't feel like the movie, pacing-wise, didn't pick up until the moment Joshua meets Alfie for the first time. I think from that moment up to the end is when the movie actually steadily picks up with the pacing. It's just that first act was a little slow going for me, personally. Another problem that I have with the movie is that I found the American military to be very hypocritical at points throughout the movie, considering that the beginning of the movie establishes that they're against artificial intelligence to a point where they want to wipe it out. Yet, they have technology that uses artificial intelligence, with one device being this weird contraction the person puts around a corpse to extract whatever information that corpse has onto a hard drive of sorts, in which they could use that hard drive to insert it into a robotic mannequin to retrieve whatever information they need to get, which leads to a missed opportunity, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. The second instance occurring midway through the movie when you have the American military attacking this village to find Alfie, and they release these robots that are essentially walking bombs, and these bomb bots have a sense of artificial intelligence to them, to a point where they literally utter the lines, "It's been a pleasure serving with you, ma'am," before running off to blow up. And another problem that I have with the movie is that I felt there was a missed opportunity here. Because like I mentioned a few seconds ago, the US military has this device in which, again, like I said earlier, has the ability to copy a person's memory onto a hard drive of sorts and insert it into a android. I think it would have been interesting if in the first act we have one of these foot soldiers who's with Joshua that clearly has a prejudice against AI die in the first act, but because they're so important that the commanding officer decides to use that technology to revive them on that hard drive device, as I mentioned earlier, and insert that device into, well, the androids there in order for that particular character to hunt down Joshua. And along the way, the character goes through some existential dread because they realize they became the thing they hate. It just felt like a missed opportunity for a potentially great character arc. That way it could have played off a scene that occurs very early on in the movie where we see Joshua and some other character collecting dead bodies, no matter if they're human or android, from ground zero. And you have this moment where the robot reactivates, yelling out whether or not its owners are A-okay with Joshua, dismantling it, saying it's just a program, they don't feel emotions. And you could have had this character wondering, am I feeling real emotions, or are they artificially generated? Considering this particular individual started out being human, then turning into an artificial life form. Another problem that I have with the movie is New Asia's response to the American government in regards to nomads' actions of hunting down artificial intelligence in New Asia. Sure, there are some points in time where we do see civilians around the world protesting the US government's usage of Nomad, or even having an action scene that occurs in the first act of the movie where you have New Asian police officers confronting the group of US soldiers that Joshua is accompanying. We get those tidbits, but as far as New Asia's government is concerned, we don't get anything. Especially during an action scene that occurs near the end of the second act, where you have the US forces quite literally invading not one but two different villages in order to hunt down Joshua and Alfie. Because you would think with the US forces invading New Asia, you would think the New Asian government would respond in retaliation in some shape or form, but they don't do anything. And for the last problem I have with the movie, revolves around Alfie, that being, why was a weapon capable of destroying Nomad placed inside of a child, of all things? There's no explanation behind it. She just happens to have this ability to manipulate technology by either rewriting it or turn it on and off, and she's the only character that can do this, which kind of begs the question, if she's able to do this, then why can't a lot of these other android characters possess the same power? Or why couldn't that technology be placed in a device of sorts that could do the same thing, just not in the form of a child? It just didn't make any sense to me. But there are a few characters throughout the movie that describe her as being the impossible child, because considering that she's technically a form of artificial intelligence, she has the ability to grow. And I think there was an idea there where potentially this could have been the next evolution of artificial intelligence, where instead of being mechanical, maybe they have the ability to reproduce, becoming synthezoids that could potentially take over mankind or coexist with them. But much like the whole transplanting a dead person's mind onto a portable hard drive, this also felt like a missed opportunity. So for my final verdict of The Creator, although it has been a few years since I've seen this movie in theaters, I still think this was one of the best movies to come out of 2023, because it's a very rare kind of movie we just don't get anymore. Something that's original, at least in that sense where it's a movie that's not based on a pre-existing IP. Sure, it does have a lot of familiar elements seen in other movies, but it takes a lot of these elements and mixes them together to form something new, while also wearing the influences on its sleeve. And on top of that, the movie also has really good cinematography and special effects. Sure, I do think some aspects of the human story could have been a little better in some areas, but I do think the main relationship between Joshua and Alfie is what really carries the movie. So, overall, The Creator is Gareth Edwards' best movie to date. And before I go any further, what did everyone else have to say about The Creator? So it looks like the movie got fairly average reception, and so for my final rating of The Creator, I give it a 4 out of 5. So, what's been your favorite movie to be directed by Gareth Edwards? And see you later.